Our grandmothers and our grandfathers fought for the same reasons, and we're the next generation, and so are our babies.
Tonight, digging in. People who want to stop a major subdivision in Caledonia say they will continue their struggle.
We don't expire as Indians, nor does the number that are on any of the different Indian status cards.
No new card, no service. An Alberta woman who was refused service because she had an old status card says that's unfair. And we take you to the first totem to be raised in 30 years in Prince Rupert, BC. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. After arrests and the enforcement of an injunction in Caledonia last Wednesday, those at the 1492 Land Back Lane camp are settling back in. APTN's Elena McDougall is there and has this.
Land defenders are rebuilding on a contested construction site in Caledonia that borders the Six Nations Reserve lands. Roads blockaded. The Ontario Provincial Police enforced a court injunction and arrested 9 people last week. Micah, a land protector at the 1492 Land Back Lane camp, said Haudenosaunee are reclaiming their land.
Reserves are static. Do you know what I mean? So, like, what they have is what they have, and as your population grows, like, there's no accommodation for that. So I think we, as Indigenous people, need to be able to grow and expand our borders as well, and, like, especially when it's like on our own territory and our own land.
A new injunction from Ontario's Superior Court has police standing by, ready to move at any time. OPP say they want a peaceful resolution. It's what all sides want. A point reiterated by Six Nations elected chief Mark Hill on Monday.
We both agree that the health and safety of everyone involved is the primary concern.
But Six Nations elected council also has an agreement with Foxgate Development, the corporation behind the housing project. In its application for an injunction, Foxgate shared details of its until now private deal where the council must publicly support the development as it proceeds, including expressions and statements of ongoing support and commitment to the development. It also compels council to not interfere with or disrupt the development, whether by protest, blockade, or any other manner of interference. And if protests do occur, the agreement states council must support a cessation of any action or conduct by any member of any First Nations that is intended or reasonably likely to delay, frustrate, or interfere with the development. Land protectors have spoken with Chief Hill and have invited the Prime Minister, Governor General, and federal ministers to meet with them. Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller said yesterday that he's talking to Six Nations leaders, elders, and land protectors. Chief Hill declined APTN's interview request, but addressed his community in a video statement Monday evening.
I have been pleased to see the willingness of everyone to engage on this issue with an open mind, and I encourage all sides and each and every person involved to carefully consider the actions they take and the impacts those actions will have on this situation. We want to be clear that we do not support any actions that would lead to violence and destruction.
A rolling blockade from London arrived at the camp yesterday evening in a show of solidarity with land protectors. One supporter said she made the trip out of concern for future generations.
They're the reason why we're doing it. Our grandmothers and our grandfathers fought for the same reasons, and we're the next generation, and so are our babies. They're not going to back down. They're going to see us lead the way, and I'm proud to have my daughter here with me today.
As the sun set at 1492 Land Back Lane, land protectors are looking toward a new day and a better future. Elena McDougall, APTN National News, Caledonia.
For more on that agreement between Six Nations elected council and Foxgate Developments, why it matters in the Caledonia dispute and how it affects the community, APTN's Brett Forrester joins us from Ottawa. So what exactly is this agreement and why is it significant?
So simply put, this is a private agreement that was signed between the elected council at Six Nations of the Grand River and the property developer that wants to build a housing complex at Mackenzie Meadows in Caledonia, where we know there's currently a dispute and an occupation camp standing. So a good way to understand this agreement is to think back to the Wet'suwet'en dispute earlier in 2020. That was before the pandemic, if you can. And what we often heard during that dispute was that 5 out of 6 Wet'suwet'en elected band councils had signed on to support the pipeline. But what that really meant was that they had signed 5 impact benefit agreements, sometimes just called benefit agreements or mutual benefit agreements. Now, this one that Six Nations signed is called just a definitive agreement, but the elected council is calling it an accommodation or an accommodation agreement. And the reason why it's significant and important is that these agreements are usually private and confidential. They very rarely become public except for occasional leaks here and there. But this one became part of the public record when it was submitted in court as an exhibit by the developer in pursuit of an injunction, which allows us to see just exactly what both parties agreed to. And in many ways, some of these terms are quite eyebrow-raising. So the key here to kind of note is that the council agreed to publicly support the plan and the project, including public declarations of support to help quell any protests that might arise and support the property developer in any legal actions that might arise coming out of any protest. So I think you could argue pretty strongly that could violate people's charter right to freedom of speech and freedom to protest.
So there's the elected leadership has this agreement with the land developer, is supportive of this development. On the other side, we have this small group of land defenders who are taking issue with this development. What sense do you get from that kind of majority of community members that are in the middle of all of this?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what the whole community thinks. You know, we are hearing that there were some consultations held. There was an open letter that was put out to the community from the people at the protest camp, which essentially said there was 6 total community consultations that took place from 2013 till 2018, prior to this agreement being inked in 2019. And the people at the camp claimed that these were pretty poorly attended. I think they said 99 people total attended in total. And so also what we're hearing again from people at the camp is that their support might be pretty low, and that voter turnout is also usually pretty low when it comes to elections in the community. So as it is with the Wet'suwet'en, we're getting into an issue that touches on the Indian Acts Authority, who speaks for First Nations, and what a decolonized sovereign system might look like in the end. So these are very complex issues, and they're being played out in real time. So we're watching to see what happens as it develops. Well, we're watching too. Thanks for joining us, and something we'll obviously be following here at APTN. Thank you. Responding to a new survey, an overwhelming number of non-Indigenous Quebecers say they believe systemic racism is a legitimate problem. And it's a motivating conclusion for the Assembly of First Nations Quebec and Labrador as they work towards their own action plan to combat the problem. Lindsay Richardson explains.
Fed up with Quebec stalling on issues of systemic racism, Indigenous leaders say they're now taking the reins.
The Assembly of First Nations Quebec and Labrador is developing its own plan of action to fight racism and discrimination experienced by First Nations.
Picard says Quebec's announced anti-racism task force lacks credibility. Premier François Legault promised an action plan by 2021, but with a handful of reports already on the shelf, Picard says the AFNQL can have their own plan ready by the end of September.
Rather than butting our head on the wall of governments that maybe are not as interested as we are, or not as interested as the people who elect them, we're going to call on the people themselves of Quebec to I guess, tag along and support our work.
A recent study commissioned by the AFNQL, conducted among non-Indigenous Quebecers, revealed that 9 out of 10 people feel Quebec has an important role to play in fostering a relationship with First Nations. 92% of respondents acknowledge that First Nations and Inuit face racism. Over 80% believe the Premier should be doing more.
I disagree with the definition of a systemic racism.
Legault has debated whether systemic racism exists at all. A majority of those who responded to the AFNQL survey say it does.
The public opinion is more aware of our situation and realities and the kind of challenges that we have and obstacles that we have when dealing with governments. They have a better understanding.
The study results paint a compelling picture of Quebec in 2020. Half the people polled admit they have little to no knowledge of First Nations issues, but perceive the relationship with government to be bad. The specific issues they're most aware of: academic failure, dropouts, and a high rate of suicide. Montreal residents reported especially negative perceptions of police treatment towards the urban Indigenous population. A majority of survey respondents feel Quebec can start addressing systemic racism by making at least one change to how First Nations issues are taught in school.
They have a place in developing, means to combat racism and discrimination. So I think it's everyone's responsibility at the end of the day.
Quebec has yet to respond to the AFNQL's plan. Motivated by survey results, Picard says they're moving forward, regardless of the province's support. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
An Alberta woman is upset that her older Indian status card was not accepted when she tried to get a driver's license, so she marched to the registry office with supporters to find out why. APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
On July 31st, Anita Large went to the St. Paul Registry, having recently moved back to Alberta from British Columbia. She needed an Alberta driver's license. Large had an older status card. She was told only the newer secure status cards are acceptable. But Large was able to get the license from another registry in a nearby town, using the same card. She believed the St. Paul Registry not accepting her card was racist. In early August, Large organized a walk from her home of Saddle Lake Cree Nation to the registry in St. Paul, about 30 kilometers away. She wanted to invite the registry owner and staff to her home of Saddle Lake to see life in her community.
I invite you to join in this healing, you both, and your staff. I invite your sons and staff, so feelings of uneasiness and tensions that are starting to rise against St. Paul registries, we move forward in a better way for all of us.
Daryl Poirier is the owner of the registry. He told Large there was no discrimination. He is Métis, and the woman who served her speaks Cree. The problem, he said, was that Alberta law does not allow registries to use less secure Indian status cards for drivers who are moving from another province.
We have to follow the Alberta government rules until notified, and that's what we do. There's no ill intent.
Service Canada recommends all people upgrade to the Secure Indian Status Card, but they do allow older cards to be used. But they also state in their best practices that only new cards should be used for people moving between provinces. The Alberta Transportation Minister's office told APTN they are following those federal government best practices. Large says she wants all status cards to be accepted for any transaction because many members still only have the older cards.
We don't expire as Indians, nor does the number that are on any of the different Indian status cards that are federally issued.
Poirier and his son told those gathered that they will help try to get the older status cards allowed by the Alberta government for all services.
And we'd be willing to help you talk to the province. That way we can make sure that those cards are part of us.
It'd make it so much easier for us.
It'd make it easier for everybody.
Poirier says they have accepted the invitation to visit the reservation. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, St. Paul, Alberta.
As many as 200 of the most vulnerable from Ibamatong First Nation who are fleeing massive forest fires are expected to arrive in Thunder Bay today. The First Nation declared a health and safety emergency on Tuesday afternoon. They're escaping the same blaze that has caused a total evacuation of Red Lake in northern Ontario. Thunder Bay's deputy fire chief says hundreds of Red Lake citizens were expected, but so far only 54 have arrived. The fire has grown to 550 hectares in size and is just 3 kilometers south of Red Lake. We need to take a break, but still ahead, 2 Hollywood stars are nominated to run for chief of an Ontario First Nation. Found out how and why when we come back. First, here's tomorrow's weather forecast for the east and central parts of the country. Starting off on the east coast, we've got 29 in sunshine for Fredericton, 26 in cloud for St. John's. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 18 in cloudy skies, 17 in sunshine for Kuujjuaq. St. Jovie, 26 in sunshine, Chibougamau, 20 and sunny skies. Toronto, 29, lots of sunshine, same with Peterborough and Ottawa. 28 and sunny for Thunder Bay and Trout Lake. Kapuskasing 26 and sunshine. 19 and some rain for Thompson. 21 in God's Lake and showers. 25 and rain for Winnipeg. 24 and cloud for Brandon. 24 and sunshine for Swift Current and North Battleford. 25 and cloud for Regina. 20 and sunny in Buffalo Narrows. 21 and sunny in La Ronge. Two celebrity heavyweights are on the ballot to be chief of an Ontario First Nation. Hollywood actor Ryan Reynolds and British musician Paul McCartney are among the names voters can choose in next month's election in Walpole Island. We're joined by Maba Espeken, who put these two superstars on the ballot. So let's start with the most obvious question. Why did you put Ryan Reynolds and Paul McCartney on the ballot for chief?
That I was just making a statement on showing how ridiculous and silly the Indian Act elections are. That you don't have to be a band member or even Nishnabé or Indigenous run for chief, the position, and hold the position of chief in our community.
Is this the first time you've nominated some superstars?
This is the first time I nominated a superstar. A rock star and an actor. I attempted to run for council before, and for some odd reason, the electoral officer didn't count my votes. So after that, I went into public administration and governance, and I told them of my election experience, and they said, under the Elections Act, that would have made the election void, but still they did it. So this time I made a statement and said, you know what? If you don't put Ryan Reynolds and Paul McCartney's name on it, this election is void. So it was just calling them out to make a point.
So I appreciate that, but what made you think, you know what, these are the two guys, these are the two names that I want on the ballot?
Ryan Reynolds has recently just donated a lot of money to empower Indigenous women, and he's been helping Indigenous people get into the movie industry. So I said, you know what, he's actually doing a lot more for Indigenous people than actually Indigenous people.
He's a good guy. Your father is also running for chief, I understand. Is this a way to split the vote and get your dad in there?
Well, all I can say is this. My father is the only person, chief candidate, that would stop a tornado for our community.
Do you think that there's any chance that these guys are going to get any of the votes?
I didn't expect it to go all around the world, but I hope my father wins.
Yeah. Well, and this story made its way to TMZ. I mean, so you've got if you were trying to get attention to the issue, I think you certainly did that. Thanks for taking the time to join us today and share this with us.
Hey, miigwech, Melissa.
Miigwech.
Bahampi.
There are 10 other men on the ballot for chief, along with those two celebrities. Walpole Island's band office is trying to reach Reynolds and McCartney about the nominations. If they can't, the stars will be removed from the ballot before the community votes on September 19th. Indigenous Services announced a major funding boost in the fight against COVID-19. In March, Minister Mark Miller announced $305 million for an Indigenous Community Support Fund. Today, he announced an additional $305 million, and it's available to on and off reserve communities and organizations. But Miller was also asked whether the Liberals can keep an election promise to introduce UNDRIP legislation.
It still remains an utmost priority of the government to ensure that UNDRIP is put forward, particularly in the light of the events that we have seen in the last few weeks over rights of Indigenous people, and it is really under the purview of Minister Lametti. But the timing of that introduction is not something I'm at liberty to discuss publicly.
We want to hear what you think of the now $600 million given to Indigenous communities and organizations since COVID began. Have you benefited from this? Let us know on APTN National News Facebook or Twitter. Well, it's time for us to take another break. We still have more news ahead. First, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather for the west and the north. To northern Alberta, we've got 15 and cloud for Fort Chip, 21 and sunshine for Peace River. 20 in sunshine for Edmonton, 22 in sunshine for Calgary. Penticton 27 in sunny skies, 26 and sunshine for Kamloops. 18 with a mix of sun and cloud in Prince George, 14 in sunshine for Dease Lake. Whitehorse 11 and cloud, 18 in cloud for Dawson City. Norman Wells, mix of sun and cloud, 19. Same with Wrigley, 21 in cloud for Yellowknife. 17 in sunshine for Colville Lake. Paulatuck, 13 and cloud. Baker Lake, 20 with mostly sunny skies. Repulse Bay, sunshine and 15. Tallyoak, 13 and sunshine. Cape Dorset, 12, mostly sunny. Pangertung, 12 and cloud. Welcome back. Haida Carver Lyle Campbell had a pole-raising ceremony in Prince Rupert, BC to honor his mother. It was the first totem pole raised in the city in 30 years, thanks to the help of coastal carvers and support from the community. APTN's Lee Wilson was there.
Matriarchs and women of the territory blessed the totem pole to start the raising ceremony in Prince Rupert. It is a memorial pole by Haida Carver Lyle Campbell to honor his late mother, Alice Campbell.
I'm just happy that it's done and that it's standing proper, and that we honored the Creator, we honored our ancestors, and we honored my mother today.
The carvers perform a ceremonial dance around the pole. Carvers from the Nisga'a, Tsimshian, as well as Haida Nation lent a hand for Campbell to complete the project, working through the pandemic. It will be the first totem pole raised in the city in 30 years. Campbell shared the story of an elderly woman who came to visit as they worked.
She walked around the pole one day while I was carving, went all the way around and then came all the way back, and she was smiling at us, and she pat me on the hands and she said, in my life, this is the first time I've ever seen this. And that really hit home. Like it made me realize that, you know, this is greatly important to people.
The raising of the totem pole received support in many forms. The blessing of the Tsimshian people of Prince Rupert, it is their traditional territory. A moving company that donated their time to take the log from Haida Gwaii to Prince Rupert. The carving was funded by donations of money and food, which people would drop off as the carvers worked. Even the trucking company, who raised the pole yesterday, donated their time. An eagle is placed at the top of the totem pole, the crest or clan of Alice Campbell. Lyle Campbell is grateful for the community helping to complete the project.
When you have something of such importance, I mean, lifting up my mom and honoring her this way was really honoring all women across our country, and kind of bringing attention to that fact that we need to honor our women.
With the memorial pole standing in front of his mother's house, a dream she shared with her son is now a reality. The Haida Carver, along with Tsimshian carver Eric Gray, plan to meet with the city of Prince Rupert to build on this success. They will propose a deal to complete a series of totem poles that will be raised annually.
I'm going to propose an idea for 10 poles for 10 years for Prince Rupert. I want 9 out of the 10, the first 9 to be the Tsimshian poles, representing 9 allied tribes. And just wanting to build on the momentum that we started here.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Prince Rupert.
What a lovely tribute to his mom. Well, that is all the time that we have for your news tonight. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.